Good morning, Conway. My name's Miss Little, and I am going to be reading from Ghost this morning. We are actually starting on chapter 5, page 76. World record for the most runaways in a single day. I wonder if doctors ever cut off somebody's arm or leg and afterward realized that they made a huge mistake, like totally blew it, because that's definitely how I felt about low topping my high tops, but not until I got to school the next day. I was cool with my new shoes when I first did it. Walked around the house totally hype about how much lighter they were, which would definitely help me out on the track. But when I heard my mom at the door, I took them off and quick threw them in my room. I didn't really think she would notice that I cut my shoes in half because she was usually so beat when she got home, she never noticed anything but the couch. But still, I wanted to play it safe just in case she was in a bad mood and saw that I pretty much just threw half the money she paid for those sneakers in the trash, buried under styrofoam to-go containers, all streaky and stinky with brown gravy and French dressing. She probably would have flipped out. And knowing her, she would have made me get the glue and the needle and thread and the stapler and some tape and made me try to fix them, all while giving me the speech about the value of $1. And that would have been even worse than her yelling at me or punishing me. Shoot, maybe even worse than ladders. I was even still good with the shoes the next morning, which I was really happy about because a lot of times when you sleep on something, your sleep for some reason causes your mind to change. I don't know why, but it does. But when I woke up the next morning, wrapped in my blankets on the living room floor, I opened my bedroom door, peeked at my shoes as if they might have come to life in the middle of the night, and thankfully was still all right with them. Even after I got dressed and put them on, I wasn't too worried because my jeans came down long enough to cover the raggedy top and make them look regular. What wasn't okay, though, were my legs. They felt like they had been cut off in my sleep, stuffed with dynamite and hot peppers, and then reattached. So even though my shoes were covered, I couldn't hide the fact that I was walking like a senior citizen zombie, which I feared would draw unnecessary attention, the last thing I needed. When I got to school, first I looked around for Brandon Simmons, but he was nowhere to be found. The only reason I was checking for him was because he could always sniff out stuff like raggedy shoes or whatever, not that he would have tried me 2 days in a row. If he did, he would have won because my legs were barely working, but he wouldn't test me, not after what had happened at lunch. If anything, people might have been teasing him. But like I said, he wasn't around. Principal Marshall was, though, and the first thing he said to me was that this had better be an altercation-free day, followed by, and Mr. Simmons won't be joining us. He's suspended, which I have to say were the sweetest words I had heard in a while. I caught up with Dre in the hall for a few seconds. He assumed I was limping because of the fight, battle wound, and was telling me how everyone was talking about how I mopped Brandon, even the people who got chocolate milk splashed on them. "Bro, you like a hero," he said. "Like you could run for class president right now and win if you were into that stuff." He threw his arm around me. Picture that. President Cranshaw. Whatever, man. I slipped from under his arm, laughing to keep from wincing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Me, Ghost, a hero? Until social studies. I wasn't really in the mood to learn about Alexander the Great, even though I did like the fact that he was called the Great. But what I was even less in the mood for was sitting in front of Shamika Wilson. Shamika was big, like huge. She had to be almost 6 feet tall in the 7th grade, and she had a birthmark that covered half her light-skinned face in dark brown, like a comic book bad guy or something. But Shamika wasn't a mean girl. She was actually kind of cool. The only problem with her was that she was super silly, and she had a laugh as big as her body. But it was a real laugh, the kind that made her bend over, the kind that Coach was faking when I first met him. So when I sat down in front of her and bumped her desk, knocking one of her pencils on the floor, Shamika leaned over to pick it up, noticing my new and improved sneakers. And then came the thunder. It just came out of nowhere. And once she starts laughing, Shamika can't stop. And the worst part is that she can sort of pass her laugh around the room to everybody just because the sound of it is so outrageous. So if she laughs, everybody laughs. Imagine the sound a car makes when it's trying to start but can't. Now speed that sound up and crank the volume high enough to blow out the windows in heaven. That's Shamika's laugh. "What's so funny, Shamika?" Mr. Hollow, the social studies teacher, asked, unamused. "Would you care to share it with the rest of the class?" And that's pretty much when I started to panic. When I had that doctor moment I was talking about, when they cut somebody's arm off and then realized it was a bad idea, my shoes equaled that arm. And now Mr. Hollow was basically asking to see my surgical screw up. Oh no, please Shamika, don't share it with the class. Don't share it with the class. Shamika couldn't get herself together long enough to even speak, so instead she just pointed at my feet. And that was all it took for like 60 other eyeballs, including Mr. Hollow's, to laser beam me and my sneakers. I tried to cross my legs and stuck my feet farther under the seat, then pull my pant legs down, but then my butt was out. There was nowhere to hide, and the next few seconds, with the whole class howling, felt a gazillion times worse than Brandon's stupid jokes about my mom. Mr. Hollow finally shut it all down and went on about Alexander the Great, while I, Ghost the Worst, stared at the pages of my textbook. The stupid black words on the stupid white page all blurring together as solid black lines. I was literally shaking with embarrassment, like my insides had turned into ice that was cracking. I wanted to break the desk or flip it over, scream, something, anything. Miraculously, the lunch bell rang. Everybody poured into the hallway, moving toward the cafeteria. Some still talking about me, others playing and joking, slapping heads, jumping on backs, getting Mr. Baskin, the school security guard, all mad as usual, forcing him to leave his post to deal with the craziness. And knowing that Baskin wasn't where he was supposed to be, once I finally got to the double doors of the lunchroom, a lunchroom I felt was waiting to eat me, I just kept walking, more like a sore walk-run, straight out the front door of the school. I had never skipped class before. Never. I mean, I had my fair share of school problems, but I was never bold enough to just go out, to just not go. And I definitely didn't have the guts to walk out in the middle of the day. But now I didn't have a choice. I had to get out of there. Once I was outside, I broke out into a full-on run. I mean, I straight up jetted because I was so scared of getting caught. I couldn't even feel the pain in my legs anymore. Adrenaline overload. I ran and ran until I was far enough away from the school to not get caught. I turned down a busy street with a whole bunch of stores on it, just because it seemed like the easiest place to blend in. I almost went into a wig shop just because I figured I might be able to grab a disguise. I mean, a wig would definitely do it. But nah. Then there was the fish market. I looked in the window. 3 short guys took huge fish, big like they were baby sharks or something, and hacked the heads off with giant knives. Wham! That was wild, but somehow I could relate to the fish. Actually, I could kind of relate to the men chopping the heads off the fish, too. Then I came to a sporting goods store. That's when the best idea ever popped into my head. "Welcome to Everything Sports," a lady greeted me at the door. Her name tag said Tia. She was wearing sweatpants and a basketball jersey with the store's name on the front. She didn't really look like she played sports, though. Patty looked like an athlete, but this girl, not so much. I mean, she had on makeup and had her hair all done. "Let me know if you need some help finding anything," she said. I hummed awkwardly. I tried not to look her directly in the face, just because I didn't want her to say anything about me not being in school. Plus, I felt weird about being the only person in the store. "Y'all got track stuff?" I asked. Then, trying to be more clear, I added, "Like shoes?" "Yep, right over here," the girl Tia said, leading the way. The track shoes at Everything Sports were amazing. Neon green and gold, shiny black and electric blue. They looked like they were full of power and speed, just like wearing them could get me closer to Usain Bolt's world record. They were just like Lou's. I picked up one of the shoes, a silver one, flipped it over to see the price, then put it right back down. Yikes. Then I looked at a mean, bright orange one, looked at the bottom. "Want to try any of them?" Tia asked. She had been standing behind me the whole time. I put the orange shoe back. They were even more, and turned to face her. The silver ones, I guess." "Size?" she asked. "I don't really know. I think an 8, maybe 8.5. The truth is, I had no idea what size I wore. I couldn't remember. When me and Ma went to get my last pair, the ones I was wearing, the ones that now had their heads chopped off, the reason we went in the first place because the sneakers I had were too small. I think I was a 7 then, and we had to bump up to an 8, but I just couldn't remember. Tia eyeballed my feet, and even though I knew she was trying to guess my shoe size, I couldn't help but think she was looking at my chewed-up dog's leg. What the... I was hearing Shamika's booming laugh ringing in my ears again when Tia finally chirped, "I'll bring a 9, too." I took a seat on one of the benches and looked around at the boxing gloves and soccer balls and every other kind of sports equipment. There was a man working in the store, too. He was standing next to a rack of jump ropes, tossing a basketball back and forth from hand to hand and occasionally spinning it on one finger, but only for like half a second. He probably wasn't no athlete either. A few moments later, Tia came back out with 2 boxes. "Okay," she said, setting the boxes down on the floor in front of me. "I got an 8 and a 9, but no 8.5. She popped the top of the first box. "Let's start with the 9. She pulled the silver shoes from the box and set them down in front of me. I untied my frayed shoestrings, I had to cut them too, and slipped my sneakers off, tucking them under the bench. 2 more people walked into the store. Tia and the other guy greeted them. Then Tia encouraged me to put the shoes on. Walk around, jump up and down, or whatever. Take your time and get a feel for them. I put the shoes on. The 9s fit perfectly. After I laced them tight, I stood up and bounced up and down a few times like Tia suggested. They felt amazing, almost like I didn't have any shoes on at all. I stepped in front of the mirror to check myself out. Man, it looked like I was wearing spaceships on my feet, or silver bullets. "How are they?" Tia came back over to check on me. "They're good," I said, still staring at my feet in the mirror. I felt like they had some kind of power in them, and that power was pumping into me, the kind of power that shut down all laughter. I repeated, now looking at her. "They're good." "Perfect," Tia nodded and went to talk to one of the other customers. And that's when I made my move. At first, I wasn't going to do it. I mean, when I went into the store, it was a thought, but only a thought. Not even like a real thought either, because I knew that I could just ask my mother to get them for me, and she would because she felt like this track thing was going to keep me out of trouble. But when I saw how much they cost, I just couldn't ask her for them. I just couldn't. But these were shut-up shoes. Nobody would have nothing to say about me with these on my feet. And that's when the thought became real. I took the shoes off, and when Tia moved to the other side of the store to show the baseball gloves to one of the other people who'd come in, and the other guy who worked there had run in the back to grab something for the other customer, I slipped the silver bullets in my backpack. I put the top back on the box and put the empty shoebox under the other one, the 8s. Then I put my sneakers back on as fast as I could. I slung my bag on my shoulder and headed for the door. Then as I got there, Tia called out, "No good?" I was stunned, but shook it off and played it cool. They're amazing. I love them," I said, trying not to look her in the face. "Maybe I'll come back for them later." I pushed the door open. As soon as I stepped through the doorway, I took off. I pounded down the street, waiting to hear someone yell, "Hey, kid!" or "Thief! Somebody stop that kid!" like they do on TV. But no one did. At least I didn't hear none of that. The streets can be noisy with cars and people bumbling around, not to mention when you're running scared like I was. The only sound you really hear is the sound of your own heart banging like a scary soundtrack to the chase. I turned the corner, still looking over my shoulder for the police, but I stopped running. Because if a cop saw a random kid running down the street in the middle of a school day, might be a sign the kid's up to no good. And I was that kid. So I tried to throw off any potential cops by walking. But that felt cocky, so I did a weird, "Don't mind me, I'm just doing my old lady power walk" thing. I knew it was only a matter of time before the police came out of nowhere, charging at me, ready to take me to jail, all because I wanted some dope shoes to be a better runner, to be a better basketball player, be better so nobody could say. Anyway, the cops never came. I didn't stop, though, too paranoid. I almost jumped into a trash can when a police car with the sirens on zipped past me. But he wasn't looking for me. Nope, he was looking for a real criminal. And I wasn't a real criminal, one with a real rap sheet. Of course, after about 5 or 6 minutes of not quite running, not quite walking, I had to stop and figure out exactly where I was going. Didn't want to head home. I mean, I could have. It would have been safe, but I just didn't want to go there. When I'm there by myself for too long, the house becomes some kind of time machine, teleporting me back 3 or 4 years, listening to my mom and dad fight and scream every night, taking me back to all the bad stuff. So that was out. There was only one other place I thought was safe enough to go, Mr. Charles's store.